This is the regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, to be held January 19th, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Cottonwood Rec Center. First order of business is roll call. We have our clerk attending virtually, so Marianne Jimenez, if you could please take the roll.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Curott.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Naren.
Here.
Councilmember Wilden.
Here.
Vice Mayor Halse.
Here.
Mayor Alinsky.
Here. Thank you. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next up is a brief summary of current events by a mayor, city council, and/or city manager. The public body does not propose, discuss, deliberate, or take legal action on any matter brought up during the summary unless the specific matter is properly noticed for legal action. And council members, do we have anything to report this evening? Okay, I'll just report briefly. The manager and I were invited last week, Tuesday, I believe, to attend the Mingus Mountain Republicans luncheon, and we were able to share with them the preliminary results of our strategic plan and answer questions. It was really a good turnout and a lot of good questions, and it was nice to kind of rehash what it was that we had discussed during our plan. So, Ron, do you have anything to report?
I do, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I'll add that they invited us back in 6 months instead of a year. They're hoping to hear from us more frequently, so we look forward to that. And if the public's listening, we're always available for any group out there that needs us to come and talk, and I'm sure the other council members would be willing to go out there as well. So just let us know if you would like us to come out and talk about our strategic plan. The only update I have tonight, actually I have two of them. The first is a reminder that the Verde Valley Regional Housing Study is ongoing. We've currently received over 1,100 responses so far. We've expanded that survey to Spanish-speaking individuals. We're running Spanish ads in the local Spanish radio station, started today. So we're hoping to get more Spanish responses. But please go online to the city's website or to www.verdevalleyhousing.com and fill out a survey if you live or work in the Verde Valley. We want to hear from you. And then I wanted to give an update from the county call today. So the health department director, Leslie, gave an update that the COVID-19 vaccine rollout is expanding. So we're moving into 1B starting on Monday. So that's essential workers, 65 and older, and many other groups. So look for an email, or you can go onto the health department's website. Here in Cottonwood, or currently it will be at Spectrum Healthcare, and they want to give over 500 shots, or they want to give 500 shots a day. So in Cottonwood alone. So I think the goal for the county is 1,500 a day starting on Monday. But look for some press releases. Go to the county health department's website, and when you get a chance, sign up for your vaccine.
All right, and next is approval of minutes of the work session of December 8th, 2020, and the regular meeting of December 15th, 2020. And I would motion to approve those minutes.
And second.
All right, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Naren seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion's approved. And then we roll into unfinished business next. Just one item, ordinance number 691, annexing certain territory contiguous to the city limits of the city of Cottonwood, pursuant to the provisions of Arizona Revised Statutes 9-471, including approximately 11 sections of federal forest service land and 280 acres of private land known as Spring Creek Ranch. This is the second and final reading. I believe we'll have a presentation here from staff. There may be folks that are attending virtually, and there may also be folks that are attending here in person. So after the presentation, we'll hear from the folks in the public. Good evening, Mr. Ellis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you. Scott Ellis, Community Development Director. I need just a quick second so I can share my screen with you. There we go. And Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, this is the second and final reading of the proposed Spring Creek Ranch annexation, which is approximately 280 acres of private land in addition to approximately 11 square miles of Coconino National Forest land to the northeast along State Route 89A. As has been discussed before, the max width must be greater than half the length. We've had that conversation. Sorry, it can't be more than twice the maximum width. So we have addressed that concern, outside opinion and multiple discussions from staff and multiple parties to determine that that is a viable measurement there. The general plan that we have for the city does reference the state trust land that is adjacent to Spring Creek. It is in our Chapter 6 growth area element in the east growth area along 89 and Vine is that way as well. It's that little section there that just popped up. The city probably hears and I'm sorry, did somebody say something?
We're having a hard time hearing you, sir.
Oh. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. So again, this is in the east growth area, adjacent to some state trust land that's out there that the city has been interested in annexing. We have had conversations in the past with the state trust department and state land department inquiring about annexation out there. We can plan for future development on that state trust land. The state land department, has indicated that it could possibly be feasible if there was infrastructure out there. So this annexation could potentially help with that. The effects of annexation are state shared revenues, sales rental tax revenue, city fire. We're in agreement with Verde Valley Fire Department. As of now, our fire department has indicated they can respond out there, as well as our police department. And also the Verde Valley Ambulance Company has indicated that they can respond to the Spring Creek area as well. City police service, as I mentioned, various city planning, code enforcement services, building department services, every other amenity and service that the city has is be available to those residents out there. The roads would be privately built and maintained. A water system, rather than individual wells, could potentially be built by the developer and maintained by the city. Obviously, that would come at a later time during the development process, whenever that would occur. This would keep individual wells from going in, numerous wells out there. Also, a primary sewage treatment plant rather than individual septic systems as well. And the city has a very good history of putting treated water back to use various ways. So that would be a benefit as well, rather than going into a septic system, which then never gets reused. And again, as I mentioned, it could spur annexation of the state trust with proximity of utilities, and the city would also be adjacent on all three sides of that state trust land out there. The annexation process, just to kind of recap a little bit, back in September, we filed a blank petition, map, and legal description with the recorder, which then started a 30-day waiting period in which we held a public hearing within the last 10 days of that. Notices were sent out, site posting, and notice was sent to the county board of supervisors and the property owners as well. The end of that 30-day waiting period allowed us to then collect signatures from the property owners, which we did. We circulated those petitions, received over 50% of the landowners, which we needed at least 50% by valuation. We exceeded that by getting 83% of the owners and 99% of the valuation. In December, we filed the signatures with the county recorder and the city clerk is required, which then brought us to December 15th with Ordinance 691, annexation, the first reading of that ordinance. And then we are here tonight for the second reading of that ordinance. On December 15th, the council also adopted Resolution 3078 to adopt the required 10-year infrastructure services plan. That was, again, a requirement of the annexation. On January 11th, you, Mr. Mayor, as well as some staff members held an outreach meeting, answered some questions for participants. We gave them an opportunity to send us questions ahead of time. We went over them for a couple of hours at least and provided the answers that we could. A lot of those questions were duplicated, so that was a concern from many residents, a lot of the questions. We did address most of the frequent concerns as well from written comments that we've received to date. Many of those, as you can see here, from approximately 168 comments, 84 of them were impact on the environment, scenery, tourism, economy. 58 comments on the impact on rural or small town character, 53 on potential traffic congestion, 50 more on impact of water resources, the water table flows in Spring Creek and Oak Creek. And then about 40 of them were regarding the state trust land. This was a runaround because it was denied in the county. The project was denied in the county. Again, this is only annexation we're talking about. We have not been presented a development from the applicant. And another 39 were the proposed density of the development was too high based on what was submitted to the county. 27 of them that the developers are greedy, dishonest, or arrogant. 27 comments just in general opposition with no specific concerns stated, just that they didn't want the annexation. They didn't feel like it was a good idea. 22 of them were regarding infrastructure and services are lacking or will be expensive for the city to provide out there. 18 of them, again, were regarding the project that was submitted to the county in a model of rental spaces versus owning a piece of land and putting a residence on it. And then another 18 concerns about emergency services and evacuation out there as well. As you'll see later on the agenda tonight, we're going to talk about the zoning out there as well. The current county zoning is RCU 2A. That's going to be presented to the council tonight for first reading and then a second reading on February 2nd. Any proposed development that requires a rezone is going to probably look at creating a major amendment to our general plan. That application would come in after approval of an annexation. There would be multiple public hearings by the Planning Commission and City Council for the public to attend, provide input on that. Initial neighborhood meetings also as well with the PAD rezoning, if that's what is proposed, which we have indication that that's what they're going to propose. So again, with the major plan amendment and the rezoning, you're looking at several P&Z Commission and City Council public hearings to go along with both of those. And the PAD is also subject to a master development plan, which would require a traffic impact analysis, ADOT approval if warranted, and various reviews by not just different departments in the city, but adjoining agencies as well. Next steps are the second reading and possible action tonight on the annexation, and then as well as the potential RCU 2A rezoning for the property. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you, sir. I just wanted to clarify one thing. The 168 comments were received prior to our the outreach meeting that we had, just mayor and staff. But we did address those questions at that meeting, and I would say we received probably 40 or more questions during that meeting that I think pretty much paralleled what those concerns were, the same themes, I would say. So with that, council, do we have any questions for staff? Yes.
I did. Earlier, Mr. Ellis, you mentioned that there is a concern that if the city does not move forward with annexation, you said there's a concern about numerous wells out with the current county zoning. Do you have an approximation of how many private wells could potentially be out there and what the impact might be to the aquifer?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Henry. The way it sits right now, with it being approximately 280 acres and the county minimum of 2-acre lots, you're looking at approximately 140 individual wells out there if they developed it based on that zoning itself. Obviously, various factors could play into it depending on what the county development requirements are and regulations are. However, you're looking at that pretty significant number of wells out there. As far as the impact to the aquifer, I do believe we have our natural resources manager, Tom Whitmer, online. He could probably give you better detail on that impact.
Mr. Whitmer, are you with us?
Yes, I am. That's a difficult question to ask or to answer at this point in time. The aquifer itself, it depends on which aquifer you're pulling from. Whether you're pulling from the lower regional Verde Formation or the sea aquifer, or whether you're pulling from the upper alluvial system. Typically, your private domestic wells tend to go a lot shallower than anything that we would put in. We'd be pulling from the much deeper confined aquifer there, which would have minimal impact, at least based upon the little that has been conducted out there in terms of hydrogeologic studies. It would have minimal impact on the springs that feed Spring Creek there. And with regards to the regional aquifer, it's not that significant of an impact on that aquifer system itself with regards to the current zoning that's in place.
Mayor, may I ask one more question of Mr.
Yes.
Whitmer as well, please?
Yes.
And so if I understand correctly, our well would be deeper and would have less of an impact on the natural springs than the 140, 150 potential private wells if the property is not annexed. Did I understand that correctly?
That's a good generalization. Specifically, it's hard to say at this point in time because it's hard to say what they would do. I mean, the developer could come in and actually attempt to put in a private domestic water or private water company in there if they wanted to feed that, which would be off of not one well per home, but worst case scenario is that they come in and just says, put in your own well, put in your own septic system and go with it.
And if I may, Mayor, on that same, you just mentioned septic. Do you, as our natural resources director, do you have concerns about that number of septic systems out at the property?
I am not a proponent of septic systems for a number of reasons. Yes, I would have some concerns about septic, especially being in that close proximity to Spring Creek.
Mr. Mayor, can I add one other thing? In addition, the septic private water wells and the septic systems don't reuse any water. So whereas if we were on a centralized septic system or a centralized water system, we would capture that water to A+ standards would be our goal, and then we would either reuse, we would inject. It would not go just general into a septic tank, and it would be treated before it was discharged or reused. So in addition to what I believe is less water use given a higher density versus the 2 acres, no yards, no green space, less landscaping that has to be watered. We then reuse what water we capture, which I think is a significant benefit to a centralized system. And we, again, Mr. Whitmer, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 70% of the water we reuse that currently in the city of Cottonwood. So we do a good job. And, I think of the villages. We don't recapture any of that water. All of that water that we send out there does not get reused. It just gets gone.
That's correct. And actually, it's greater than 70% is what we capture here in the city of Cottonwood.
To add to that, I'm familiar and have installed a lot of septic systems out in Cornville, and for many, many years now, the septic systems have been designed to be the leach lines to about 4 foot deep. The reason for that is that's shallower than they used to be required to do because they want wicking, which means they want a lot of that water that goes into that septic system and into the leach field to come up to the surface and to evaporate. So again, they're actually designed to not recycle water, to actually let it and allow it to be evaporated, a lot of it.
Yes, ma'am.
There would be some watering via plants or whatever. That would go back into the water table, and is that correct?
Mr. Whitmer, did you hear that question?
Yeah, yes, I did. Any water that's used to irrigate any of the landscaping that's out there, little if any of it would actually comes back to the aquifer. Generally, it's taken up by the plant and transpired, or you just gets through soil evaporation. So you get very little unless they're applying excessive amounts of water over and above the consumptive use of the plant. There's little to no that will go back into to recharge.
Which is essentially why we use reclaimed water at every chance we get. Yeah. All right. Any other questions?
I just had one more question, and this is either for Mr. Corbin or Mr. Ellis. But can you explain clearly, I'm just beginning to grasp the importance of the city's Hillside Ordinance and this proposed annexation. Can you perhaps walk me through that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Henry. So the city does have a Hillside Ordinance, and within that ordinance, the goal is to protect not only hillsides, but also washes in any significant vertical topography change. So yes, it's referred to as a Hillside Ordinance, but it does address washes in those sorts of various topography as well. Basically, what it allows is within certain percentages of a slope, you can disturb another certain percentage of that slope. Until you get to, I think we put it at above 39 or 40%, then you can't disturb it at all, and it has to remain natural.
And how is that different from the county as far as development, houses on the hillside or in the wash areas, et cetera?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
How does that city ordinance differ from the county with regard to this specific development?
To my knowledge, I don't believe the county has a Hillside Ordinance that would protect anything the way we do.
So does that mean that the developer could grade and build on the slopes that are present currently at the property?
I believe so. If they met the engineering requirements that were associated to do that, yes.
Any other questions from council? All right, well, we can open this up now to some public comment and circle back around and answer any questions that come up during the public comment, or if we have any other questions here from council, we can bring it up after this public hearing. Okay, so with that, I did receive one form from a gentleman who's in the audience this evening. I believe that there may be others online who are watching this evening. We're going to limit the public comment to a 3-minute time period tonight. And again, like I've said many times before, this is a public hearing, but it's not your only opportunity to ask questions from staff or council. There are many other opportunities to do so, but as this is the public hearing, we're going to go ahead and open it now to the public, and we'll close the floor after we hear from everyone this evening. So we're going to start out again with the one gentleman who's in the audience tonight, Mr. Holland. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm going to repeat a letter I sent in December. Honorable City Council, imagine, if you will, the year 2035, 3 lanes of traffic heading north between Cottonwood and Sedona, and 3 lanes heading south Housing developments, strip malls, office buildings, hotels, gas stations, restaurants, movie theaters, bars, a bowling alley, tire and car repair shops, big box stores, real estate companies, etc. litter the landscape on both sides of the highway and the traffic, pollution, and congestion that comes with it. Kind of like Prescott Valley or North Phoenix. Is this the kind of legacy we want to leave for our children and grandchildren? We have a moment here where we can do the right thing and keep the land in its natural state by not annexing it. Let it stay in its original federal and state jurisdictions. Honorable city councilors, please do the honorable thing and protect the land we love. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Mr. McLean, I'm going to need your help here with the online. Okay.
First up, we have Jim Collins.
Okay, Mr. Collins, can you hear us? Mr. Collins, are you still with us, sir?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I've written several letters. You probably all heard them. You get a lot of information from all these people that are opposed to this annexation, talking about, the environment, the density, and all these other things, traffic, whatever. But one thing you have to look at are the people. The number of people opposing this annexation is immense, both within the city of Cottonwood and without. I'm in Cornville. I moved out here because we love the open space. I can sit on my porch and I don't see another home. However, once Spring Creek goes in, I will see those homes being built. And once you annex the state trust land, they'll be in my front yard. That's not why I moved to the Verde Valley. Okay? So you people need to understand that, the two parties, basically, I won't say people, because the two parties that own the Spring Creek Ranch properties and want to go through this annexation, how do they outnumber, the hundreds and thousands of people that live in Cornville, the Verde Valley, that are opposed? Is it money? Where's the money coming from? All right. If the Spring Creek Ranch goes in, if a state trust land gets annexed, you've already proposed that there'll be 50,000 people on that property, plus industrial, plus commercial. That's not a small town. We are a small town environment. We're rural here. We want to maintain that. So the benefits go to the city, but not to the people that are affected. Under your list of concerns, you talk about zoning. Well, now, shouldn't that zoning, you want to go to RCU 2A, shouldn't that be worked out before you can approve annexation? You're putting it out here as the first reading tonight and the second reading in a future meeting. That should be determined before you annex the property. Anyway, my point is, the people here need to be considered. And I don't feel that you're considering the people. So please, look in your hearts, understand what this is going to do to the Verde Valley, and vote against annexation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
I have Mr. Thomas Bonk.
Mr. Bonk, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for listening to me. Regarding this annexation, it is completely outside of the voter-approved general plan. I believe that the general plan requires an amendment before annexation for this property so that it is within the general plan. It is outside of the general plan. Regarding the legality of the annexation, I know you've spoken to legal counsel regarding this, and they say it's legal. I have read the Arizona League of Cities document on annexation and they disagree. They say that each tract must independently meet the congruity requirements. This is just a bad idea for the city. You're going to have to cover fire, police outside of the city limits. It's going to reduce the effectiveness of your fire and police. Every annexation must have a positive effect on the city. This is not. This is just the state funds that come in. Mr. Mayor has said that it would be a wash. A wash is not a positive effect for the city. It is detrimental because you're adding a lot of responsibility to the fire and police, the ambulance service, and it's going to slow down on your response times. I don't want you to be the ones to say to some mother, I'm sorry, the ambulance was out at Spring Creek Ranch and we couldn't get to you, son who passed away at the scene. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monk.
I believe I have Mr. and Mrs. Hoffman.
Is it Miss Hoffman? Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am. Yes.
All right. Thank you for listening. I previously sent in comments, and I want to stress to you that I am not a resident of Cottonwood, but I am one of the residents who are mostly impacted if you approve this. And as you know, you know this, we out here don't approve it. And the reason is there should be one area. We're asking for one area between Cottonwood and Sedona to remain rural. And you're starting another Prescott Valley. That's what you're doing when you do the state land, and then you surround this with CSR and forest land. You're starting another Prescott Valley. And we are just asking you for one, just one, rural area. We really know what's happening here. We know that your desires and the CSR development desires are in conflict with us. We know that Cottonwood wants the state land because you've been planning that in your planning documents. This is just a boost to your planning. This is surrounding the state land. We know that. You're not fooling anybody. And CSR knows that if they do a run around the county, which they did, because they went to the county and they went to the P&C Commission and they were disapproved 5-4. They were disapproved. So they're doing a runaround to get to you because they know that you want the state land and they would be adjacent to that. So we know what's going on here. And it's in controversy to the way what we desire. We desire one place between Cottonwood and Sedona to be rural. We think that the 2-acre properties, the 2-acre current zoning of CSR is acceptable. We are not in opposition to that. We know that would happen. We don't want a pad. Majority of us don't. We want to be rural. Please allow one area to be rural.
Thank you, ma'am.
All I have for the requests. There's other people online. I don't know.
All right, I'd like to read a couple letters then that we received as well. If I may, this one's handwritten and the handwriting is lovely, but I may not be able to read it all, so I apologize ahead of time, but I'll try to get through this. Gentle persons, For the best return on their investment, the developers of Spring Creek Ranch obviously aren't content with 142 homes on 2-acre parcels allowed by Yavapai County, and that the chances of a variance to their liking would be better obtained through city regulation. They would not have approached the city had they not felt assured, and perhaps actually assured by the present regulations, of outcomes more in their favor. It seems that the city is pro-development as an inevitable and necessary consequence of population growth, and that the limited availability of private land spurs development of such for higher density occupation. Such was my takeaway from the city's forum on the annexation held on January 11th, 2021. Who but developers in general have the financial ability to develop large tracts of land, and who but developers can afford to buy state trust land? Should it be a part of the city's plan to obtain the state trust land along 89A, we encounter the same problems of the blight of urban sprawl that cities have faced or allowed previously. Now is the time to openly discuss policies for the new master plan of Cottonwood that includes sustainable building, open space, parks, preserves, urban trails, and wildlife corridors. Why not, at this time, focus on already developing corridors between Cottonwood and Clarkdale and along Highway 260 between Cottonwood and Camp Verde, and consider expanding density in already higher density areas? Unless the city severely restricts development on Spring Creek Ranch to protect the creek and the native wildlife it supports, and further studies the impact long-term water pumping will have on the bubbling ponds, Page Springs Fish Hatchery, Oak Creek, and the small farms and vineyards in the area, and ultimately the Verde River, severe damage could happen. Must we wait until a severe crisis is projected or occurs before we conduct more extensive hydrological research on the valley's groundwater basins? There are still a lot of unknowns in this regard. Should Spring Creek Ranch come under the city of Cottonwood's purview, the best scenario I can envision would be to purchase it and preserve it as a park. It could become a turning point in our present paradigm of growth and progress to employ sustainable means in the ways we must grow to protect our future. In my wildest dreams, I could see a small-scale teaching model for sustainability, such as Arcosani, located at the premises of the ranch. Keep Sedona Beautiful has already presented to the City Council much information to be considered regarding the Spring Creek Ranch development, so I will not repeat it. Rather, I would urge all concerned as caretakers of this beautiful land to do our best to preserve the gems like Spring Creek for future generations and manage the areas we are already growing and must grow to the welfare of all. I know people need homes and jobs, and that growth can be necessary and good. I trust in the good intentions of the people of Cottonwood, and I say let us strike a balance that causes no harm. Sincerely, Susan Handel, I believe is the name, and I'm sorry if I didn't get your last name correct. And then one other letter that we received this evening is regarding the annexation proposal. Honorable Mayor Linsky and council members, my name is A.R.S, and I have lived in Cornville approaching 5 decades, and I'm a native of Arizona. I have had the humble pleasure of serving many groups in the Verde Valley, including but not limited to being a school board member 2006 to 2012, Community Site Facilities Co-Chair at Mingus Union High School 2004-2006. I have also had the privilege of being on selection committees to approve contractors for large Cottonwood municipal projects 2014 to 2017. As an engaged citizen in our beautiful Verde Valley, I would like to strongly express my approval of Cottonwood proceeding with the second reading of the annexation tonight at your City Council meeting. My opinion is the City of Cottonwood is much better prepared and suited to work with developers than Yavapai County is due to your ordinances, policies, and procedures for development along the 89A corridor included in the annexation proposal. I trust you all to do what is best for our beloved Verde Valley. Please understand, I realize growth is inevitable, and we have a chance with this annexation to create what is best for all residents of Cottonwood and neighboring communities. I implore you to move forward. Respectfully, with grace, Eric Wiles. Those are the only 2 letters I received where the authors asked that it be read in the public. I know council, myself included, have received many dozens of other emails from folks in the community, some in Cottonwood, most from the surrounding communities. So, any other questions from council for staff? Ron, did you want to take a crack at some of the concerns that were brought up, if you don't mind?
I don't mind, Mr. Mayor. One of the concerns we heard a lot about was continuous development along the 89A corridor between Cottonwood and Sedona. I sent out a map, and it's been circulated before. That's just not going to be possible. Yes, someday the state trust line will be developed, and then Spring Creek. But from there to Sedona is mostly federal land. It is federal national forest that will stay forever open and forever be preserved at the federal level. Even the areas we're annexing will not be developed. The forest will stay as is. There is no ability for us to influence or otherwise do. That'll be a great outdoor partner, preserving our outdoor lifestyle and preserving nature. So while there is areas that can be developed, private land, a majority of that view will remain. And I believe that we have policies in place that will help us preserve the view. That's the other thing I think the Hillside Ordinance does. It helps maintain the view for all. Response time, PD and police department, fire department, can we handle it? Is it going to be a significant cost? Let me start with the fire department. So our fire department is currently staffed with 2 engines out of 1 firehouse. It is set up to be 2 fire engines out of 2 firehouses. So it is ready to expand to wherever that may go. So we already have the vehicle. Council, you might see something in the budget regardless of this about a new fire engine, but stay tuned on that, sorry. But that'll be my problem to present to you. But either way, we have 2 engines staffed, fully staffed with leaders and frontline firefighters ready to split. So there will be no new cost there. Now, future, if we expand down to 60 or some other direction, we may need a 3rd house or engine at some point, but not currently in the plans. Thank you to our previous manager and fire chief who arranged for, I believe, a SAFER grant to get that 2nd engine up and running several years ago at a significant savings to the city. But we're fully paying for that and funding that at this time. Again, until there's actual development out there, we don't expect much business until there's activity out there. PD, the same thing. We will have to add police department eventually, but it won't be until we have individuals out there. And I believe that we'll have tax revenue to help cover the increased cost because we will have to police out there. Now, I believe that we will have land donated to us. There is a project at 89 and Vine off of Cornville Road that has already dedicated or committed to dedicating land for a station, which will be a fire station plus a substation for PD, and probably utilities will have office space out there as well. So the land's going to be donated to us, which is inexpensive, and I believe that through our fees that we have, we'll be able to cover the cost of the building. So again, the land is donated, fire is already staffed and engined, so really it's a cost of building out there that we will have to bear, but I believe that our fees with this kind of development would cover that. So I don't believe there's any jeopardy. We work very well with our sheriff partners, with the Verde Valley Fire Department. Verde Valley Ambulance is already committed to responding, so I believe that the public is safe and secure. The other question we get a lot about is development. Well, why aren't we developing out 260 or up the other 89A up towards Clarkdale and Jerome? So I just want to clarify that those areas are on our long-term development plans, but I want to talk about 260 specifically. There's no water and sewer out there, and there's no developer waiting to put in water and sewer out there. We've turned away many a project close to town because we can't get water and sewer. I think on tonight's agenda talks about extending one of the water lines more than a few feet, but not very far out there to begin, actually for redundancy purposes in our Verde villages versus long-term economic development. But we have no water and sewer out there, so we don't have anybody interested in developing out that way. Especially, let me just give kudos to Camp Verde. They have an opportunity zone just outside of town, outside of Cottonwood, that developers get a significant discount for developing in that area. So they're more willing to put in the infrastructure and other things that are needed that we missed out on several years ago. So I think that you'll see Camp Verde 260 corridor develop before ours. We're always eyes open, ready to help and do what we can. There's a small tract of state trust land out there that's already in the city limits that they would love for for us to help find a developer too. And every chance I get, I mention it to a developer that's interested in doing something out there. And then 89A is planned to develop. It's already zoned. I believe there's some industrial spot, there's some commercial spot, and we're just working through that. Much smaller developments. You guys know about Inspiration Apartments. It'll be on 89A. There's some commercial zones out there, some industrial zones out there that are ready to go. So they're not being ignored. The thing about going out 89A towards Sedona direction is we have developers who are ready to start building infrastructure, sewer, septic, water, wells, infrastructure, roads. When a developer puts in the roads and they remain private, there's no future road cost to the city. It's a great opportunity partnership for cities. They have to be built to meet our fire standards, carry our fire trucks and all that kind of stuff. And then we don't have any future development. So anytime we can get a developer to agree to build roads, they're usually a little smaller. I think we have some in town in a couple different subdivisions, but they work and they're their responsibility, not the city. So there's no added future cost. So that was kind of the answer about why not 260 and 89A. And then your last letter, Mr. Mayor, talked about sustainability. We believe we're all about sustainability. We believe that the environment is important to us, and we will do things, including water, that will help preserve the water and ensure that there's water for the future of Cottonwood.
All right.
I don't have any more requests. There are people online. I don't know if you just want them to unmute or what.
No, I'll go ahead and I think it's time to just close the floor. Then we received our public comment. Any other comments, discussion from council? Any other questions for staff?
So I've read all of the emails and all the objections. And what I see here is, and I'm going to be generous and say there's 200 people out there that oppose this annexation. They're making it about development most of the time. Right now, we're only talking about annexation. We'll be talking about development later. That's 200 people. Most of them live in Sedona, Cornville, Rimrock. I think out of those 200 people, and like I said, I'm being generous, there's about 4 people in Cottonwood who have made an objection. That means in Cottonwood and Verde Village, there's about 25,000 people that don't have any objection. They're not going to go to the trouble to tell us they're all in favor of this or to even worry about it. So there's a lot of people out there who don't seem to have an issue with this. I don't have an issue with this. I've read our general plan. That's been brought up too, our general plan. This dovetails perfectly with our general plan. That is an area of growth out there. We're talking about 280 acres of private property. If you wanted to leave it at RCU 2A, it's been brought up that that's 140 lots. That's 140 private wells. That's 140 septic tanks. And I agree with the mayor that we don't want to see that happening again. We don't want to see that. And I've developed land out in Cornville that each house had a well, had a septic tank. Not 140 of them within 280 acres. RCU 2A zoning was created in 1968 by the county as a placeholder. It was put on land out there in Yavapai County that wasn't zoned yet. We'll get to this later and we will zone it. It wasn't meant to be a zoning. It was a placeholder until the county was able to take the time, get together ahead of the curve, hopefully, with the community, and to figure out what the zoning should be for that property. If you want to keep RCU 2A zoning and you want to go to its logical end on what it could be, we're talking about manufactured homes and we're talking about the legal ability to put shipping containers on that property for storage. This could look like McGuireville. It could at RCU 2A. That's what it could mean. It could look like McGuireville. I don't think anybody wants that in between here and Sedona. The state trust land. I've worked with the state trust land department. So that's private property. These people have a right to develop it and they're going to do it. And I guarantee you, I know this council, they're not going to get the density that they're currently asking for. We're going to work with them and give them something that's fair. And it's going to work for the community. that state trust land, but this between here and there. I've worked with the state trust land department. I've been down there. I've got the maps. You should see them. We have 17% of the land in Arizona. 17% is private property. When you look at that map, we live on these little bitty islands in a sea of government land. We're not going to be overdeveloped here. We have a finite amount of property that's going to be developed. This private property, if somebody wants to conserve it, go right ahead. Get together, pool your resources and buy it and conserve that property and leave it pristine. But it's not going to stay that way. It's private property. Somebody wants to develop it. You need to buy it and you need to keep it that way. State trust land is to be sold off. This was back in 1912 when Arizona became a state. This is land that was meant to be sold off for development purposes someday. It's going to happen. And I guarantee you, working with the state trust land department, they're going to sell it to the highest and best use, to a bidder that comes in and applies for that. And I don't even believe that you'd be able to buy that property to conserve it. They want that property to work for the state of Arizona. That's why we complain about our roads all the time. We don't have enough private property. We don't have enough tax base because of that to take care of the things we want to and to support our schools and to pay for our roads. We're not going to grow too large here. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but this is a good deal. I think I agree with the mayor. Cottonwood is best suited to determine how this gets done. Sewer, the water, and being able to manage that. A septic system isn't going to reclaim any water. I think we have a record of 70% on reclaimed water with sewer. We are the municipality that is best suited to determine how this gets developed. The county doesn't have any concern about utilities. They don't have any concern about infrastructure. They don't care about it. They're not going to get involved in it. We do, and we want to see it done right. So I think we are in a position to make sure that this is done properly. It dovetails perfectly with our general plan. It is going to grow. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be the nightmare that everybody's predicting, but there is going to be change. Things are going to be different. But we are Cottonwood. It's about the people. We're still going to be a small town. We're still going to be a rural area. I fully support it. I really do.
Are we going around the room?
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
please.
And I'll be brief. I, as well as I think everybody sitting around here on council, has spent a lot of time on this issue, a lot of time and a lot of thought. And I've reviewed the emails, spoken with folks, and I'll be brief because I don't want to just keep repeating items. We've been asked multiple times to leave the land in its natural state, but we don't have that authority where it is owned by a private developer that does plan to move forward, whether with the county or with the city. And I do agree with what we've heard tonight that the city can do a better job at protecting our aquifers and in our environment and ensuring that this development is in line with our small town values. And that's all I'd like to add to the conversation tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Wilden?
At the risk of being using oversimplification, two things, and I mean super brief. This land is going to be annexed by somebody, if not us, who? And that's my main concern. And I truly trust that Cottonwood will do the right thing. And secondly, this is strictly about this annexation. It's not about development at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Karat?
Well, it is just about annexation. It's not about what's going in there yet. And I'd rather have a seat at the table for what goes in there and do it right and conserve as much water as we can and as much land as we can. It is private property. It's going to be developed either way. But I'd much rather have something we can work together on than something built out of spite after they get tired of waiting and go and get a court order that says they can build what they want.
Thank you. Councilmember Nairn?
I don't really think I have anything else to add. You guys have all said it very well. This is such a controversial issue, and we've all put a lot of thought into this. We've all done a lot of research. It does seem that Cottonwood is better positioned to
do what we would like to see done, as opposed to another municipality annexing it and then doing something that we would not want to see done. So this would seem the best way to protect the area for all of our needs, Cottonwood citizens and the Verde Valley as a whole.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
I would agree with the rest of the council. I'm not going to belabor the issues. Traffic is a problem. Traffic was a problem 50 years ago. Traffic will be a problem 50 years from now. By not annexing Spring Creek by the city of Cottonwood, we put that particular piece of property in jeopardy. We know what Cottonwood will produce. We don't know what another municipality may produce when they annex that property. Our goals are to make sure that we have a wonderful city that provides all the amenities of our rural neighborhoods. And that will be our goal when Spring Creek does develop. And it will be developed differently than what has been proposed, which is, I think, the biggest complaint of any of the people who have raised objection to Spring Creek. I don't foresee that it will ever be as large as was first asked for.
All right. Thank you, sir. And I think I spoke at length during the last public hearing. I know I had the outreach meeting as well, and I made a lot of my points clear during that meeting. So I, too, am not going to take up a lot of time this evening. But I did want to just comment on a couple things, concerns that were brought up both tonight and in the past. Concerns about this section of state trust land, Spring Creek Ranch, turning into Prescott Valley, and I don't mean any disrespect to Prescott Valley at all. It is a lovely community with lovely people, but I think it does represent kind of an older style of planning that the county has been involved in that just Cottonwood long ago recognized didn't work for the best of the community. So we put together a good staff and planning department and a strong leadership predating all of us here that put together the different ordinances that impact growth in a positive way. So of course we're all familiar with this, the Hillside Ordinance that we discussed this evening, of course, commercial landscaping requirements for xeriscape. We've got the dark sky ordinance. I mean, just to name a few, open space requirements for any planned area development, subdivision ordinances, et cetera, et cetera. So really in reaction to communities that we felt didn't have enough forethought for the amount of growth that is coming our way here in Arizona. So I too don't want to see this turn into a Prescott Valley. I think I stand united with the rest of the council and likely our entire community that we don't want to see this corridor become like Prescott Valley. We do live in a growth state. It's really hard for us all to recognize that. I explained too during the public outreach meeting, my grandfather came here during the Depression. When he raised his family in Glendale, in the small town of Glendale, there were 15,000 people. It grew quickly. It's sad. Am I going to be heartbroken when I see dirt flying at Spring Creek Ranch? I absolutely will be heartbroken. I don't want to see it be developed either, but as Councilmember Matthews stated, that's not our choice. It will be developed. I say when the dirt flies. It's really a matter of within which jurisdiction that dirt is flying. And again, I think we're in a better position to manage that growth, protect our natural resources, all those things I've stated before. So I think that's really the biggest points I wanted to make. I know many folks are opposed to this. I don't want to leave you with the impression that we're not listening to you. We are absolutely listening to you. I believe this council just doesn't 100% agree with you or has a different set of circumstances and facts that we're reviewing, which is going to guide our decision making. The point I'm trying to make is don't blow your steam on whether or not this is going to be developed. This will be developed. The real battle will begin now. If this is annexed either in the city of Cottonwood or even if it remains in the county, the real battle is what this development looks like in the future. So we really need to quickly, and I mean quickly, get away from opposing any sort of development out there at all, and quickly move into what do we want that development to look like, because this is really the critical work that's ahead of us. And I think, as I mentioned on the call again, the outreach, do I want to be in this position? I was not envious of the County Board of Supervisors when they were reviewing this, but it is the responsible thing to do, and I think Cottonwood has always stepped up and done the responsible thing, and I expect exactly that from this council. So again, the real work begins after tonight, and I hope that you will continue to remain engaged in this process as we move forward. And with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 691, annexing a Spring Creek Ranch property consisting of approximately 280 acres of land located southeast of State Route 89A and approximately 1.5 miles south of Pace Springs Road, along with approximately 11 square miles of Coconino National Forest land between Cottonwood and Spring Creek Ranch property into the Cottonwood city limits.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Matthews and a second by Councilmember Karat. If we could have the clerk please virtually take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Curott.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halse.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And Ms. Jimenez, would you please read ordinance number 691 by title only?
Ordinance number 691, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, annexing certain territory contiguous to the city limits of the City of Cottonwood, pursuant to the provisions of A.R.S. 9-471, including approximately 11 sections of federal Forest Service land and 280 acres of private land known as Spring Creek Ranch. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, Council, up next is the monthly financial report.
Mr. Mayor, again, this will be in the packet every month. It'll be posted on our website every month, and we're here to entertain questions if you have it. If not, we're good.
Any questions from council on the report? No. All right. Very good. Carry on, sir. Consent agenda. We have 3 items tonight on the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed. So again, 3 items. First up is application for a permanent extension of premises patio liquor license permit submitted by Jose J. Lomelli, applicant for Juanita's Taqueria located at 611 East State Route 89A. Item 2 is contract with Southwestern Environmental Consultants, Inc. for engineering and design services for a water transmission line on Highway 260 from the City Well site to Del Rio Drive. And item 3 is resolution number 3080 and 3081, appointing Randall Garrison and Angela Romeo as members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Council, is there an item that you would like to have pulled? No. All right, then I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Councilmember Henry made the motion and Councilmember Wilden seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? All right, if we could please have our clerk read resolutions number 3080 and 3081 by title only, please.
Resolution number 3080, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Randall Garrison a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and establishing his term of office. Resolution number 3081, a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, appointing Angela Romeo a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and establishing her term of office. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. And before we move on, I just did want to acknowledge that we did receive, I know the council and myself received some emails in opposition to appointing one of the members for our Planning and Zoning Commission. Just so the public's aware, years ago we put a process together, about 4 years ago, in fact, that was before your time, sir. Essentially, it's a 2-part process. There's a blind matrix that reviews our applicants for any of our commissions. And then council then also interviews those. We combine both of those scores to come up with the recommendations. Again, this is a blind matrix, so we judge and score the applicants based on their ability to serve in the position that they're applying for. Okay, new business. The following items are for council discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. First up this evening is ordinance number 692, authorizing Yavapai County zoning to continue in effect for the area known as the Spring Creek Ranch Annexation Area. This is the first reading. Mr. Ellis, are you with us still?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you again. Scott Ellis, Community Development Director. This is the first reading for an ordinance to, let me get to that, sorry. Basically to establish the initial zoning in the Spring Creek annexation area. Cities cannot adopt zoning that has greater density or uses than the current county zoning. And we also may authorize current county zoning to remain for up to 6 months. Right now, we do not have a zoning district that matches the county zoning. We have an AR zone, agricultural residential, with a 1.6 acre minimum lot size. As you know, the county's RCU 2A is a 2 acre minimum. The next one we have is our general agricultural zone, which is a 5 acre minimum. So at the time, right now, we're going to request that we maintain the county zoning for up to 6 months to develop another AR 87 zone, which is 87,000 square feet, which is what 2 acres is, to have ready to apply to the Spring Creek area, the private property in there, if we don't have a submission from the property owners to rezone to something else, such as PAD. The national forest part of the Spring Creek area would then become NF zone, national forest zone, which we do have existing right now. But to simplify the process, we are looking to do the entire area as county zoning for at least 6 months, the RCU 2A. So once that other zoning district is created, we'll go ahead and rezone the national forest portion to our NF zone. And in the Spring Creek, the private property there will go to either PAD if the applicant proposes a rezone to that. Could take longer than 6 months, or we'll then have our own A.R.S 87 zone, which would match more realistically what the county has. That AR 87 zone that we'd look to create would not necessarily only benefit this, but it could also benefit future annexations, including state trust that may be zoned that RCU 2A. So it's not out of the question that this could apply to future areas as well. Any questions from council on that? Again, this is just the first reading. We would bring back the second final reading to you on February 2nd.
Mr. Ellis, I have just a couple questions for clarification. So we have a 6 month stay on this 2 acre minimum zoning, correct?
Correct.
And then if we deviate at all from that zoning, please explain to me the process that will take place at that point.
If we deviate from the RCU 2A?
Correct.
So let me make sure I understand your question. If the county, if we place the county zoning in, we would have developed the AR 87 zoning as well to put in if the applicant does not propose a PAD zoning. So by statute, we have 6 months to hold the county zoning. However, if it did go past that and there's a process in place, again, if it's going to take too long, which likely a PAD rezone will take longer than 6 months, we'll have this AR 87 zone to put in place if needed.
I guess
Does that answer your question?
It does. I guess what I'm driving at is we can supplant the 2 acre minimum from the county with our AR 87 zoning. But if they are to deviate from that, if they're going to move to something denser than that, I just want to clarify that this will trigger an amendment to the general plan. And I just kind of want you to I know you've gone over this in great detail in the past, but just yet again, I want to just clarify these things so that people know that there are many other opportunities to get involved in the process moving forward.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Council, that's exactly right. So if they were to come in and propose a rezone that did increase densities, it would absolutely require a general plan amendment. We're looking at a major general plan amendment, which does have to happen within the same calendar year that it is applied for. Usually that process has to start by April in order to make sure that, given the significant review periods, that it can be completed and brought to council before the end of the year is up. That is within state statute that has to happen. Would trigger, again, if they rezone the PAD, planned area development, that triggers master development plan, which again gets reviewed by not only all the city departments, but other agencies as well that may be affected. Neighboring agencies would send it to Yavapai County, Game and Fish, ADOT, Forest Service, State Land Department for reviews. All of the local school districts get to look at it. So there's ample input, not only from various agencies that may be affected with their jurisdictions, but then those go to public hearings as well, as the rezone does. So it'll go to the Planning Commission and City Council for a number of public hearings throughout the process. That's just the rezone. The general plan amendment triggers its own public hearing process as well.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can I add that there's no automated change? So something will have to come back to council to go to anything else, including a new zone if we create the new zone.
All right, again, this is first reading. Any other questions from council? All right, thank you, sir. If we could have our clerk please read ordinance number 692 by title only.
Ordinance number 692, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, authorizing Yavapai County zoning to continue in effect for the area known as the Spring Creek Ranch annexation area. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next.
Mayor?
Yes.
I had one comment that I wanted to speak online.
I apologize. I didn't open the floor to the public. Let's double back here. And there's one person, I believe, online that would like to.
Ms. Hoffman.
Ms. Hoffman, would you like to address council? You have 3 minutes, ma'am. And I apologize I didn't call on you.
And if you could unmute yourself.
Ms. Hoffman, if you can hear us, if you can unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to address council. And again, I apologize. I didn't pick up. This is my own failing with the virtual platform. I apologize very much. But there will be another opportunity, ma'am, for you to address the council, as well as you can email our clerk or manager or the entire council.
All right. I finally figured it out.
Okay, we can hear you.
So on the 692, it sounds like you are considering something other than RCU 2A. Is that correct?
Ma'am, so I apologize. This is just a hearing, so you're able to address the council. But we're not able to have a dialogue with you back and forth, but you can address council. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll try. Your 692 ordinance says that you allow a further discussion with the landowners to determine and apply the most appropriate initial city designation for the area. Who are the landowners? If the landowners are only the two current developers, that is the CSR developer and the current residents of that land, then that isn't really sufficient to determine the most appropriate initial city zoning designation or the final designation. I guess I don't have any confidence after the approval that you just gave for the annexation that residents around us, around that area where I live, will even be heard. We're not in Cottonwood, we're in Cornville. We're most affected. You are not affected in Cottonwood, we are. Why doesn't that matter? That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. All right.
Mr. Mayor, I have one more from Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for listening to me tonight. I just have a little bit of a misunderstanding on how you can annex property prior to changing the zoning on that property. You're saying you're going to go to RCU 2A, that's fine. I understand you have the right to do that for 6 months. But what you're doing is after you annex the property, you're going through with a process to create a new zoning ordinance, which will then be incorporated on that property after 6 months. It just does not seem proper that that's something you could do. You're putting the cart before the horse, is what you're doing. Another question I have is you talk about Spring Creek Ranch property and the zoning there, but what about the National Forest? You have no zoning for Coconino National Forest. You have a zoning ordinance which specifically states it controls the Prescott National Forest. Is there also a zoning ordinance that's going to be proposed and passed that covers the Coconino National Forest? I would appreciate answers to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I believe those questions were answered in the presentation by staff, but again, we do have a zoning that aligns with the National Forest. That zoning will be applied to the National Forest in the future, as well as there are opportunities, and we will continue to pursue those opportunities to engage the public as we move forward with any kind of zone change that occurs on the Spring Creek Ranch. Anything else to add, sir? No? All right. Okay, and again, I apologize for not recognizing that there were folks virtually who wanted to comment. And now we move on to item 2 under request for an extension of conditions of zoning approval for the Inspiration and Cottonwood apartment project to maintain PAD, planned area development zoning, on a 9-acre parcel located on the south side of State Route 89A at its intersection with Candy Lane. Mr. Ellis, I think this is still you. Mr. Davis, my apologies.
Yes. Getting my presentation. Can you see my presentation now?
Yes.
All right. Gary Davis with Community Development Planner. This is a proposal for an extension of the PAD approval for Inspiration at Cottonwood. The location is on the southwest side of State Route 89A at the Candy Lane intersection across from the hospital. Property is about 9 acres, and the current zoning is PAD that was approved in 2018. Due to the proximity of the airport, an navigation easement will be required to be recorded against the property. Tenants will be required to sign an acknowledgement that they understand the proximity of the airport and noise will be present. Developer will use building materials to help reduce the noise heard from the airport, and there will be signs posted at property entrances indicating proximity to the airport and the associated noise. Proposal is to develop 9 acres into 192 units, apartments. An adjacent 2.4 acres was originally proposed for future development on the highway frontage. There would be a mix of 2- and 3-story apartments, 6 building types, total of 17 buildings throughout the site. Vehicle access from the west and east ends of the property off of 89A, which requires ADOT coordination. And the site plan showed approximately 320 parking spaces to be available. 2018, this required a minor general plan amendment and a rezone request for the 9 acres. That was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission on February 26, 2018. They recommended approval to the City Council. And on April 3rd, 2018, the City Council approved the ordinance for the rezone. And it was approved subject to stipulations. Stipulation number 10 was that building permits would be required within 2 years of approval. That did not happen. And we have a new developer now, the Fain Signature Group, that is willing to go forward at this point. Their request is in your application, is in your packet. We're proposing, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended extension for another 2 years, subject to the original conditions, stipulations, with the exception of stipulations 4 and 10, which would be updated. 4 would be updated to say that the development is subject to the design review approval from May of 2018, and they would have to come back for design review approval with the Planning and Zoning Commission if there were any substantial design changes. And stipulation number 10, the last one, would just update to say secure construction permits within 2 years of the City Council approval of the time extension. So that's our proposal that we see before us. This is the site plan. North is to the right. You can see the driveways, 2 driveways coming off of Highway 89A. This shows a little better with the landscaping involved, with the buildings and the clubhouse. Some renderings were presented back in 2018. These are elevations, and this is an elevation of the clubhouse building, and some perspective renderings as well. So that concludes my presentation. We do have representatives of the new developers online if you have any questions of them.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Council, do we have any questions for staff before we say goodbye to Mr. Davis? No? Do we have any questions for the developer? And yes, sir.
Can I put them on the record, Mr. Mayor? When's this going to start?
Is that a question for the developer, for Ms.?
Well, I would ask Gary to answer that, but I think he'd be guessing too. But I'm under the impression this is supposed to start this year, probably in the spring, in a few short months. So I didn't know if the developers wanted to comment on their projected timeline.
Do we have representatives here? I'm sorry, I can't see you or see your name, so I'd invite you to present to council if you so choose.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. My name is Ron Fain. I'm with Fain Signature Group. Also with us tonight is my brother Brad Fain and Miss Anessa Andrews, who will be supervising the construction of this site. And yes, we do anticipate that start of construction would be within the second quarter of 2021. And then probably likely an 18-month construction period to completion. And those are just general start dates and approximate construction times. There are other variables that could affect that.
Very good, Mr. Fain. Any questions for Mr. Fain? Well, listen, we're really pleased to have you on board. I know there were some bumps prior to your arrival, but we are excited to see this project come out of the ground. It's very, very needed here in our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Council?
Are you ready for a motion?
Yes, please.
And I just wanted to add, I think we've all been waiting for this project, and I'm happy to see that it may be finally moving forward and happy to support this. I move to approve extension of conditions of zoning approval subject to the original stipulations of approval, except that stipulations 4 and 10 are modified as follows. Number 4, development is subject to design review approval of May 21, 2018, which is extended until issuance of a certificate of occupancy. A new design review approval shall be required for any substantial design changes. And number 10, secure construction permits within 2 years of City Council approval of the time extension.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Councilmember Henry and a second by Councilmember Wilden. A roll call vote, please. Ms. Jimenez?
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Currat.
Yes.
Councilmember Matthews.
Yes.
Councilmember Naren.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Halse.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, very good. Thank you, and good luck to you, Mr. Fain. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, ordinance number 693, repealing section 10.16.080, use of handheld devices of the city code. First reading. Mr. Horton, take it away.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is really in the nature of housekeeping. In 2019, in early 2019, the subject of distracted driving had been under discussion at the state level for a number of years without any legislative action. So in 2019, the council acted and adopted Ordinance 656, which created Chapter 1016.080 of the City Code about distracted driving, hands-free driving. Very soon thereafter, the legislature succeeded in adopting state law, and that state law had an implementation period and a period of education. But it also provided that effective December 31st of last year, a few weeks ago, local legislation would be largely or entirely preempted. So this is the police chief brought this to my attention, and he believes, and I agree, that it would be appropriate to repeal the local code provisions to avoid any redundancy and confusion.
All right, pretty cut and dry, but are there any questions? All right. Is there anyone virtually that would like to comment on this? Yeah, right. My bad. Okay. First reading, so we're going to bring us back at a future meeting. Let's have our clerk please read ordinance number 693.
Ordinance number 693, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 10.16, Operation of Vehicles of the Municipal Code by deleting Section 10.16.080, use of handheld devices, which was adopted by ordinance number 656. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. I would move to pay the claims.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Naren made the motion, Vice Mayor seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, Council.